The Jagersfontein disaster has not only turned the lives of residents upside down, but experts believe it may also bring long-term health complications. One person has died and over 300 others have been left homeless after a mining dam burst in the Free State town. There are now reports of a risk of raw sewage flowing into the Kalkfontein Dam, which supplies water to several towns. So let's get you more insight on the possible long-term impacts of a disaster like this. Labour mining analyst Mamokgethi Molopyane joins us via our phone lines, in fact, this morning. It's great to talk to you, Mamokgethi, to get your perspective on yet another mining disaster, yet another way in which communities around mines are impacted negatively by the work done by mining companies in our country.
Yes, hi, good morning, Michelle. Absolutely. We are seeing a catastrophe that has unfolded that is going to have a very long-term impact on the area, the community, and how the people in that area live their lives. And even it's going to have a socio-economic impact on many of them. And it's not unique to South Africa, where the conflict or the intersection between land, natural resources, and transnational actors themselves, our companies, and mining play a role in the impact of everyday lives of ordinary people.
I mean, we're really scratching the surface at the moment. We're only beginning to understand how this particular community in Jagersfontein will be affected in the future, right? For now, it's the immediate disaster. It's the fact that their homes and in many cases their livelihoods have been destroyed. They've lost all of their belongings. They escaped with the clothes on their back. At what stage do we begin to talk about the long-term impacts? And I'm talking here about specifically health-wise, what the impact of this disaster could be in the years to come.
Well, we have to talk about it now. We cannot delay it because your viewers would recall that and must remember that tailings dam are often have chemical toxins in them because they are residues and everything that has been spilled out of a mine, as it were. So the long-term effects are only going to be known once people's health becomes severely affected. But as being proactive as government, as the company itself, as society, we have to talk about the impact that it's going to have on people's health now, because we have seen in many areas where over time, the impact of environmental catastrophes like this one becomes attritional in time. It takes a while to reflect. It takes a while to manifest long after the incident has taken place. And eventually, when it does, it becomes so corrosive that ordinary lives no longer can be the same. So I think as a proactive measure, it's important. Government must begin to, the Department of Mineral Resources and the presidency really must begin to anticipate that there are going to be health challenges for the people in Jagersfontein. There are going to be challenges, not just health challenges, but also there are going to be challenges about the quality of water, the land, how it is used, the impact that dam collapse has had on land itself, on the livestock, the kind of the quality of air, the living standards there. So it's a process that government needs to start now. And one of the main worries for South Africa is that often when we have had a disaster, we talk about it for a week because it's something that has become a very public spectacle. And then, or a month, and then afterwards, the interest dies down. But many people that are left behind are literally left to clean not just the mess, but to deal with the trauma also that is caused on them.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. This wasn't just a mudslide. This wasn't just ordinary mud. This is mining wastewater. So obviously there are those chemicals contained in the mud as well. Mamokgethi, it reminds us of the silicosis settlement from, I believe it was 2018, right, where South African gold producers agreed to that 5 billion rand settlement for miners who had contracted silicosis because of what they were inhaling in the work that they were doing. I mean, that kind of settlement was precedent-setting in a way, and you would have thought it would have changed how mining companies conduct themselves in communities, but it doesn't appear to be the case.
Yes, because, Michelle, we often, and not just in South Africa, throughout the world, where there are mining activities, where there's environmental degradation because of extracting natural resources in whatever way, in whatever form, we tend to focus on something when it happens then and there because of the impact it's had and how it manifests in this sense of the collapse and the spillage through the village or the town. But we tend to overlook or not focus on long-term solution. I mean, even now, when you look at the MPRD Act of Mining, it's not very clear about what must happen to tailings dam, the management of waste, and the management of, and in a case of emergency like this or a crisis like this, what must happen. It's never very clear. So this becomes, this is why it is often so easy to overlook the outcome or the consequence of what has happened because often we are not prepared for it and even when it happens we are reactive. What we are now seeing, and unfortunately such incidents often occurs in places where many of the people who live in and around the area are not people who otherwise would have been prioritized in terms of being given attention because they are not in a suburb that is quite fancy, but they are in a village or in a little dorping, as it were, and only after a disaster has occurred do they become visible then. So these are the people who are often invincible, the communities, they are often invincible, the residents of Jagersfontein are often invincible, but they've only just become visible now, and it's only going to last for a while, and then afterwards it's overlooked. I think this is a crisis. So here the issue of environmental justice becomes so relevant because the company must take responsibility. Equally so, government must take responsibility. And I do think over time we are also going to see, because there's also often the nature of performance on this. You're going to see organizations wanting to fight for people because there might be a case, there might be a civil case that can be put together, there might be, as we had seen in the silicosis matter, but eventually, even if that happens, the ordinary people of Jagersfontein, while people are having gatherings about them, meetings, discussions, emergency in Dabas, emergency in Lekotla, the ordinary people of Jagersfontein, we must not forget, must carry on with their everyday lives, which is almost impossible to do. And so the ministers and the government officials will come and there'll be this spectacle of saying we are doing something about it. But the day after, week after, the people are left to deal with the crisis and often at a greater economic cost than often anticipated.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's hope that that issue of invisibility does not come to pass and that this is an issue that stays on the top of mind of government and those that need to respond. Mamokgethi Molopyane, let me thank you for your time this morning, a mining labor analyst, as we continue to unpack the disaster that unfolded in Jagersfontein.